Welcome to the Hospitality Maverick podcast with me, Michael Tingsam. We at Hospitality Mavericks are here to inspire leaders to create heart-centered and profitable businesses from the inside out, the kind that both employees and customers love and support. In this episode, I connected with Samuel Mensah, who is the owner and CEO of Uncle John's Bakeries, which is the UK's #1 Ghanian bakery. Sam is an entrepreneur of heart and soul and have over the last 5 years, together with his parents and the team, transformed the family business into a recognized national retail bakery and wholesaler, partnering with great brands such as Morrisons, Tesco, Deliveroo, Obeyeyie, and they have also entered markets outside the UK in Belgium, France and Germany. And this incredible journey have also taken them to a visit to Downing Street number 10. Sam tells an amazing story about how his parents started the business from very humble conditions after arriving from Ghana to the UK in the 80s. We also talk about their approach through the pandemic and how they have reinvented parts of the business and making sure they stay relevant. Sam also gives his views on what to expect that will happen in the next 12 to 18 months, which he knows and believes will be very hard, but he also believes that they will be a better business on the other side. Sam gives some great advice we all can use to navigate the new now. And one advice really stood out, and this is one he got from his mom. We all have to remember, Obeyeyie, life will get better. So grab headphones, coffee, a notebook, and before you tune in, why not sign up to our Maverick Community newsletter and great insights and leadership tools at Hospitality Mavericks, or just use the link in the show note. Enjoy. Welcome to the Hospitality Maverick podcast with me, Michael Tingsam. And we are actually on the 1st of October, moving into autumn, and probably also moving into a new phase with this whole pandemic and in the food and drinks business. And it's important now. It's gonna be hard. It has been hard the last 6 months. It's probably gonna be harder. But I really looking forward to this conversation today, because I think it will give us a bit of faith and hope, and also see what's possible, in the future. And maybe this, I've talked about it before on the podcast. There's the independent operator. I know it's tough out there, but there's also a massive opportunity ahead with all this change going on, because business and people is changed, as we know, forever. But we don't know 100%, but they definitely changed, and actually more focusing on serving their local communities. And for this conversation today, I was lucky to be hooked up with Samuel Mensah, who is the MD of Uncle John's Bakery in London. So welcome to the podcast, Samuel.
Hi there, Michael. How are you?
I'm very well. And you are part of a very unique niche bakery business. So let people understand, who are you, Sam, and what is your family's business all about? Because what I think is very unique about this conversation is that this is a true family business handed on for generation to generation.
Yeah, thank you for the introduction. For our business, so Uncle John's Bakery has been running for 25 years now. This is actually our 25th year. Coincidentally, such a remarkable year. It's a intense year for everyone. But we've been running for 25 years. My parents started the business in the early 90s. They came to the UK in the early 80s. And a lot of the time they were looking for exports back from Ghana. And they couldn't really find as much. I think those times there wasn't really a lot of people here that were bringing imports over, and there was also a lot of loss of quality. Within our family, we had a recipe for bread, which is really commonly known in Ghana, such as called sweet bread or sugar bread. And my dad's mum had the recipe, so that was also passed down to my dad. So they started basically building a business. We worked from a bakery that was in East London, in Stoke Newington, a Jewish bakery actually. My dad would go in there and bake at night whilst the bakery was closed. And once he had his stuff ready, he would take it out. He would deliver it to various like little community centers within the community, and started building the business from that. We supply pretty much the whole Afro-Caribbean community, and we've been doing so for this whole period of time.
What has happened on that journey? Because starting from your dad getting up in the middle of the night and doing this himself, the business has grown into some kind of business that's not only serving the local community around Stoke Newington, but also gone above its borders, both national and international. Isn't that true?
Yeah, so that's true. I mean, we kind of they left, so my mum was really integral in terms of the part of the growth of the business as well. So she came on board, helped out my dad a lot with basically bringing on different recipes, refining the recipes. It got to a point where they outgrew the space that they were in, and kindly so, with the family business that was going on in the bakery at the time that we were given the space to use. It grew out of that, and we had to get our own space. Um, and my parents basically managed to get a store in Tottenham, which we still have today on West Green Road. And that store is where basically Uncle John's Bakery birthed from. It started to branch out from. In the beginning stages, our main signature product, which is called sweetbread, was sold from there. And we started doing local deliveries here and there, and started to grow the business. And during that time, especially in the mid 90s coming up to 2000s, there was also a recession. It wasn't easy at all, and especially for a very niche kind of business to try and grow through that kind of time. Uh, it was very difficult for my parents at that time, and I always remember, and I always kind of, when I speak to my mum as well, she always tells me the story of, and I remember when I was younger, I was a kid, I didn't really pay attention to it as much, to be honest. I just saw it as something that my parents were doing. I just used to like to eat the food. But I just basically, my mum used to always have this saying of, which is called Obeyeyie, which is in Ghanian, and which means things will get better. So she always used to say to my dad that, as hard as things will get, there was points where he had bread in the van, wanted to deliver the next day, and because of being tired, he would go for a rest, and the actual van was stolen with all of the stock inside it. And it was literally back to the drawing board. And anyone in the food industry knows that when it comes down to margins and costs, everything comes back from when you're spending money on your ingredients. So things like this used to happen, and it was difficult. It was not an easy time at all. But they kept persevering and they kept pushing through. And then also my grandmother, which is my mum's mum, also was involved in the business. She was a caterer, so she knew a lot about cakes and donuts and pies, and so we began to broaden the menu within the business. And from there, the business, started to sustain itself. We became part of the community within Tottenham, within Haringey, and we, started to develop a brand, and things started to grow. So it was pretty much the same like that for around maybe 10 to 15 years. It was a very local business. People knew where we were. People knew where to find us. Local shops had our products, especially a lot of the Afro-Caribbean kind of stores. And I pretty much got involved, I would say. I always kind of had a foot in and a foot out, just due to me just, getting my full education, going to university. And I was also involved in the music industry as well. So for me, that was my kind of direction. But we reached, I would say, a kind of glass ceiling moment where I realized that even though the bit of help that I was giving to my parents, there was still a glass ceiling of where they could go. And my vision and my tenacity of how I view things and how I want things to be done, I, be it that being applied to the business, I think would have definitely worked. And my mum spotted that very in the early stages, and I wasn't too keen on it, to be honest. I think just because when you grow up with something and it's just so normal and natural to you, you just feel like it's just there. It's not something you really want to get involved in. But as I grew older and as I matured a bit more, I started to realize that there is so much more power in legacy. There's so much more power in ownership. And as well as I was doing within my music career and being in the music industry, I decided to take decision to take a fallback from music and really take a foot in the business and really kind of spiral it to the next level.
Yeah, and it's interesting. What was the tipping point for you there? Because there's always the kids taking over the family business, and then you, as you said, you had a background for media. What was the tipping point? What was it exactly that happened? Was there like a specific moment where you thought this is now, and what kind of reflection was it that you did at that point that I need to go and do this?
The main thing was legacy. You know, we grew up in an environment where, you know, a lot of like young kids, a lot of young black kids like myself don't get a chance to see, you know, people build things and, you know, pass things on through a generation. Um, and for me, I kind of felt like, you know, I've been through music, I've also been through sports, and that is the narrative that we always tend to kind of see. So for me, it was a thing of where this is a different narrative, and you know, it's not just about me. This is much bigger than me. This is a community business, for one, and two, you know, even for my daughter as well, for her to kind of see that there is a different way, there is a different, you know, outset in terms of life options available. So it was more about legacy. It was more about leadership within the community. It was more about kind of showcasing exactly our culture and our heritage proudly, but putting it on a platform and putting it out there to a level of good quality and a good level of good consistency. So for me, that the tipping point was really realizing what we kind of had as a business and what it could be and what it can be. Um, and yeah, it was just it was very difficult at that time to make that kind of decision, just due to the fact of I was really enjoying what I was doing within music, and I was you know, performing. I was doing festivals. I was talking to record labels. So it was an exciting time, but at the same time, when you have a realization that your journey potentially is going to be much bigger than yourself, you tend to take a stand back and, you know, look at the bigger picture, and that was the turning point for me. And I think in the early stages as well, when I kind of started to get involved a bit more, one of the first indications was we had a kind of like a small partnership. We had a partnership with Tesco's, and there was a company called Euphorium that had asked us to come and be part of their project. That they had bakeries within Tesco's, and they were facilitating breads from different parts of the world. And they had seen that we are quite predominant inside a lot of the local kind of community areas and wanted to bring us on board. So we started that project, and that's when I started getting a little bit more involved and the technical side of things. Um, and it kind of just showed me that there was a lot of interest, and I saw an opportunity to take the business into more of the, you know, the larger end retail sector of the world, and, you know, the supermarkets and stuff. So that's where it gave me that realization, and I knew that if I don't take control of it, I don't think it wasn't something that my parents would be able to capacitate, and they were open about that also.
And I guess being a leader for something, you said it yourself, very niche product, an Afro-Caribbean Ghanaian bakery, and a very niche product range. So what did that mean, in today's world? Because there's a lot of bakeries that has, the bakery kind of thing have exploded over the years with, they have the big players like Gales, where we had Marta from Gales Bakery on the podcast as well, and you have lots of the independent local one, all with a different angle. But this is quite niche. What does that actually mean for you as a business?
For me, I think growing up in London is it's always shown me that it's so diverse. There's so many different cultures. There's so many different things to learn. So many different people to meet, and just the experience of being in London and experiencing that from going to school, from being in you know, in college and university, meeting so many different kinds of people, and people trying different kinds of foods and learning different cultures. It just showed me that being different in especially in this country and especially in the communities is a USP. And, you know, for what we do, there is no one like us in terms of what we do. So that being our USP was something is something we could use to our advantage, and educate people and show people exactly what it's like to try Ghanaian baked goods, or to come and experience what it's like to come into a Ghanaian store, but still keep a good level of customer service, keep a good level of quality and consistency, and there is sometimes a stigma attached to sometimes Black businesses in terms of maybe not delivering enough quality or not delivering enough consistency, and it's something that I wanted to change, that kind of narrative, and showcase that no, that's not the case. We do care about what we do wholeheartedly, and that comes from one being a family, that comes from supplying and supporting the community also.
Yeah, and one thing I've noticed, because you can hear that you're talking very proud about your product and the quality, you've been handed over a lot of beautiful recognitions from major institution, and the biggest one when I was looking into you guys, that's of course the Time Out magazine, but I think Downing Street number 10. What was that about? And it's and how did you ended up serving bread there?
I mean, for us, it's been we've had a very interesting journey over the past, I would say, 5 years, 5 to 6 years. That's when I stepped in to be officially like the CEO, and actually be the owner of the company. And my parents took more of a back seat, even though they find it hard not to at the moment. It's I guess it's like it's their baby, so there is a whole load of passion that they still have for it, and tension, trying, bringing in these new ideas and new things. But yeah, it got to the point where we, from the Tesco's, we started getting more recognition. We built our whole distribution arm. We started supplying. We do to about probably around 200 stores around London in itself. We supply stores outside of London, also outside of the M25, and it started to just to grow. The branding of the business also changed, and it was a spiral effect, really. We obviously, the first kind of major publication that came to us was Time Out magazine. We did stuff with Vice magazine also, and that really started propelling the business into a new kind of limelight and exposing us to a new audience. And for me, it was people were recognizing the change and the growth in the business, and a lot of people wanted to kind of see and know who was behind this change. At this point, to be honest, I didn't really want to be the face. I just wanted to be behind the scenes and just orchestrate things as much as possible, and work with the team and empower people and try to get things moving. But again, it was also another turning point and a realization that it is important to kind of see who is behind, and the mindset behind the change and the growth, so people can kind of resonate with it a bit more. And it being, we're part of the community, so people want to see who is doing this, and how is this happening, and how is this being sustained. So off the back of that, I got basically nominated for a British Black Business Award as a rising star entrepreneur, and made it as one of the finalists for the category. Yeah, went to the ceremony. Being there and having that acknowledgement is a great and amazing thing. And off the back of that, basically, we received a call. I think it was like a Saturday, and we were doing a deep clean in the factory. Normally, I'm not in, but I think I was just in on that day just to kind of oversee, and I was passing by, and then the phone rang. And when the phone rang, something was saying to me, just pick it up, because normally the phone rings for me a lot. Um, so I tend to get people in office to either answer the calls and stuff like that, because I always have a lot of other different things I'm sorting out and doing. So it picks up the phone call, and then it was a call from a private number, and the person said, "Oh, calling from the office at 10 Downing Street, and we would like to invite Samuel to come down for a business leaders reception that we're holding." So I was like, okay. So I got past the message, and then I spoke to the lady on the phone, and she said, "Yeah, we would love to have you down. Um, would you be up for the invite? And I said, yeah, that would be great. And then the business mind in me said, oh, well, if I'm coming down, would it be, basically, we have the opportunity to kind of partly cater for the event. So, and she said she doesn't see why that isn't a problem. So I think she went to go and ask senior people within the team, and that's how that happened, basically. So on the day, as well as we had like a stall set up inside 10 Downing Street to sample a lot of our goods for the event, we also had some of our products that were taken around via the caterers in 10 Downing Street to give to all of the guests also. And I was actually honoured by the ex-chancellor in that reception that was in 10 Downing Street, just in regards to what the business has been doing and what we have done in the past couple of years and the impacts that we're having in terms of community-wise. And it was a really nice moment as well, also because my mum was there to actually see this all happening. And I think it kind of took her back and kind of gave her that overwhelming kind of feeling. I think just for the sheer fact that, you know, they came to this country with nothing, and to be in such a powerful institution in this country, you know, having recognition of our brand, it was something that she was really proud of. And for me, sometimes I get kind of, I have such a fast-driven mind. Sometimes I don't really pay attention as much to the moment. So I'm already in like 2022 in terms of where my mind is thinking. But I've also realized that now is really important to take time and, you know, be in the present as well, and take on board and acknowledge what is happening now. So that's how that all happened, basically.
Because now we have a very different situation, and I totally agree with you. There's nothing more important than when you are the owner, the CEO of a business. You need to be not only in the front line with your employees, but also out there talking to the world about your story and why it matters in a way. And you need to be the front line for that, if that on social media or that's face to face. And I think that's the change we will see as well. The companies or the CEOs that has a really good story, an authentic story like yourself, will definitely have a different role to play than ever. And it's not just a role in running a business. It's also, as you mentioned before we went on live here with the conversation, it's about how you contribute to the community and finding out what your role is and what you can do. We can all do small things, and it's the small things that matters, as you said as well. So I think that's very well put there before. But now we have a totally different situation. We are in the middle of a pandemic, a new territory for any business leader. What does that mean for Uncle John's Bakery and yourself as the MD for the business? What happened at that point, and where are you now with things, and how it's impacted the business?
I mean, for us, it was when the pandemic it started from the beginning of the year, and when it started to really kind of impact, you know, things within the UK, it was quite difficult because psychologically, you know, with business, you always try and tend to think, you know, you've got your forecast for how you want to do things 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, 2 years down the line. But the situation came and it was kind of like a standstill. What is going to happen? And when you're in charge and when you're, you know, you're leading the team, the main thing to think about for me was the staff. How are they feeling? And how comfortable are they with this situation? And, you know, just ensuring them that we are still operating. Luckily enough, we're an essential business as well. So we supply Morrisons nationwide. So for us, it, you know, on that side of things, people were literally mass buying. So for us, it was good in terms of orders, but our retail side took a hit. The footfall of people coming into the store was much less. And when it gets like that, the disheartening that comes from, you know, our staff members and how they feel in terms of that, you know, not enough customers are coming in, and they may start to panic in terms of, you know, the business is not going to, maybe it might not sustain itself. And I think the ethos that has taken us through the early stages of the business is something that is still intact for now, which is the saying, which is Obeyeyie, which is things will get better. And I think that transcends not just across our business, but throughout the community, throughout different regions, throughout the whole country. And it's important to always remember and realize that things sometimes have to go bad in order to get better. And it's hard to have that foresight and see it. But those that do see that foresight is to install the hope in everybody else, to also show them and give them that chance to believe that things are going to get better and will get better. It's just that you do get blindsided by the situation that we're in, which is not an easy situation at all.
Yeah, because it becomes over consuming. It feels like it's forever, doesn't it? And but as your mom said very cleverly, life will get better. And you know, and I think it's about, you know, also you said before, being in the now and enjoying those small moments as a business owner, because you also have to radically accept you can't win in the same way you did in March or early March. It's just not possible to get these outcomes. It's not possible to get the same speed. And you mentioned the speed of London. The speed of London is totally taken off. I've been there once during the pandemic, and I've never seen it so quiet. This fast-paced environment. Lived there myself. Now moved outside London, and it's just lost that. It's like London is in reflection in a way, and thereby business is also in reflection. Did you see then a change in the way people ordered with you and stuff like that? I guess you would still sell product to your wholesale supermarkets. Did you see that explode rapidly now that you didn't have the footfall in the retail bit of the business?
I mean, it increased a bit, but I think that was just for a short period of time, just because people were panic buying. Also, another reason why it was quite difficult, because as I mentioned before earlier, that my parents still, you know, have a foot in the business. They still come in every now and again, but they were because of the lockdown situation, they were actually trapped in Ghana. So they went away early February and couldn't basically come back pretty much throughout the whole up to now. Pretty much, my mum's back in the country. She managed to come back. I think probably it was like mid-August. She managed to get a kind of like a chartered flight and come back. But my dad's still in Ghana at the moment. And for me, it was quite I would say almost like a lonely time in terms of trying to think about what to do and how we're going to manage this situation, because it's a new situation. No one knows what's coming tomorrow. No one knows exactly what the true impact of it's going to be. But the first thing that came to mind for me was, you know, trying to sustain a business as best as possible. So we closed our store for a couple of days. And during that time, it was just basically to find out from the staff in terms of how they felt and how they were feeling with things, making sure that we had a lot of the social distancing measures in place and following the government guidelines in regards to stores and retail. And the next thing was basically now utilizing technology to our advantage to make sure we can get access to the customers that normally buy from us that can't leave their homes, and also accessing new customers. So that came around from making sure that we were on a platform like Uber Eats, we were on were on Deliveroo, updating our social sites with new store times, and that began to start building up a lot of traction. I think now we're in a digital age, and digitization of business is so important now more than ever, just because everyone is on their phones. And I think to capture that audience, or to capture people now, it's a bit more harder than it was before. But because people are on their phones, their attention spans are not as much as it used to be. So you have to basically engage with people via technology, because that's where they are. And for us, that was a kind of major turn in terms of how we were going to adapt to this situation. And I think that's the way my mind kind of shifted more towards and focused on up to today.
Interesting what you're saying, because a lot of MD CEOs and founders I've been talking to the last 6 months have said exactly the same. It's like this digital roadmap suddenly were speeded up in food and restaurants and hospitality in general. Where suddenly we were 5 years into what they would, in the pace they normally would done things, and of course they needed to create that revenue, as you said. And have you then seen that sustain after you did this shift to delivery with Uber and gone on your own website, online selling? And have you seen that the sales has been sustained there? Has it added sales, or has it actually cannibalized some of the sales you normally would have from footfall traffic?
I mean, it adds into sales. I think just due to the simple fact that now marketing tied in with the digitization of a business online opens you up to a whole new portal, gives you access to people maybe that you may not have had access to from before. And we were fortunate enough to do a campaign, massive campaign actually, with Google. And it was basically just talking about small businesses and how we've been able to utilize Google's My Business platform and update customers in regards to the pandemic and how we are available via online. And that gave us a real good push in terms of accessing a whole new audience. But again, there were limitations. So our limitations with that was we only went out to a 3-mile radius from our store. And then that brought me on to building a platform on our website. And the website actually was in a new website that we had done, went up literally a month before the whole lockdown happened. So for me, I always knew that digitization was coming. It's apparent in many other industries, and it was only a matter of time before it was going to come in food and be very prominent. We see that now with Uber, with taxi service, and people can literally call it, by themselves. They don't have to go to a cab station as they used to before, or flag down a black cab as they used to before. They just literally have the power to access what they need. And, that was always going to happen with food also. So making that decision to, create a new website and implement that platform was something that I was doing for this year anyway. But the pandemic just sped up that whole process and operation.
During the pandemic, what is the biggest surprise you had, and why?
To be honest, the biggest surprise I would say is the resilience of people. That's my biggest surprise, because there is a lot of fear that's installed in the community. There's a lot of fear that people have, and taking this pandemic seriously, it, there are people that that are maybe extended or family or people that you may know of that have either caught it, that maybe not have as much symptoms and stuff like that. And it's the resilience of people that are willing to still kind of try to come out, try to support, try to the impact of the true support of small businesses and communities. That has shown me. I was quite surprised by that. Should I be surprised? To be honest, no, because I think people now have always wanted to support locally, but I think also the biggest surprise is seeing the larger corporations incorporate that support.
Yeah, can you tell me a bit more about that? How have you seen that with the larger corporation going more local?
Like it's just like us doing the Google campaign. I wouldn't imagine that we would do a campaign with Google, especially at this kind of. If the pandemic wasn't there, I don't think we would be fitting for a campaign that they were going to do. But I think just through our initiative of when the pandemic happened, again, our focus is also always going to be being part of the community. And one of the things also that we did as an initiative was a lot of the NHS staff workers on the front line that weren't able to get food inside the supermarket because of the panic buying that was going on. We offered NHS staff a free loaf of bread at any time when they came into store and showed their ID, just so that they know they can come in guaranteed, can get a loaf of bread, um, and take it home to their families. And for us, that generated a lot of traction because people supported that, and spread that was spread pretty much throughout the whole NHS network. And again, we're a small family business. We're not like a massive, large corporation. So we just did what we can. It wasn't about the money. It wasn't about the exposure. It was just about trying to help in the time, and do what we thought we could do. And I think that kind of transcended more in terms of, like I said, blessing for us to receive, you know, doing this partnership with Google, which gave us the scope, and we went out to different publications. We had a campaign partly with the Daily Express, with the Guardian, the Times. We had an ad spin on LBC, Capital Radio. So it really branched out the business in that kind of capacity, and it kind of helped us a lot in terms of exposure, in terms of understanding, and the purpose of what we do as a business and as being part of the community. And I think that's what people are buying into, and larger corporations realize that more now and are supporting that, because I think the gap was very big in regards to large corporations and smaller businesses. But I think now the people are going to always drive what happens, with a large corporation or a smaller business. And I think they're realizing now is what people want matters more than anything.
Yeah, and I guess we I touched on a bit before, business and people have changed forever, and we have different needs, and you can see it in any local area. You will probably see that the local butcher, baker, fruit guy, and veg guy, they are probably picking up businesses. There's new platforms like Click It Local coming up, and it's super interesting to see that how quickly that switch was, because you could see that was happening already, to say free. And I think now that the savvy consumer, as I call them after the pandemic, really understands how to spend their, maybe let's call them food dollars, better, and actually support around this community, because maybe in some corporates' views, they will not be there for the community when it really gets tough. They are not opening the store every day. They're not feeding the NSS workers. They are not doing these things, and we could be going into a similar situation as you just described. We could go into a very tough period where we all just need to come a bit more together and help each other. And I think that's one of the things as well the pandemic has showed us. We have become a bit too individualistic, very driven by values about performance and what's in it for me, in kind of way. And forgot a bit about it's about the greater good of everyone. So I think you're absolutely right about that. How do you see that? With all this change going on, and there's so much talk about future for retail, food and drinks businesses, and it's like right now, if you go into the media, it looks very, very dire in a way. But how do you see the future, and how do you see yourself and Uncle John's Bakery within that?
I mean, how we see ourselves and how I see myself looking at this whole situation is just to be as resilient as possible, um, and being as optimistic, but not letting the situation overwhelm too much. Um, People are always going to need to eat. That is, a key fundamental to survival. And how we do that as a business and how we can facilitate within the community is where the true kind of answer lies. So digitization of business now is so important, in the food industry, because that gives us direct access to consumers much more than it was before. And I think people now want to, they want an experience. They want to experience different things. That's just the culture of how we live in the UK. People want to try different things. People, love to travel. People want to see different things. So giving direct access to people and to consumers with that, especially with if you've got a business that is very diverse, is this is the time to really showcase that and set foot in the market and place yourself there.
That's very well spotted, because I guess also people want to have these niche experience and buy from real people, and I guess that's also what you've seen during the pandemic, is that people really wants to understand who's behind the business. You mentioned that before also, but what are you doing to the product? and are you transparent about that? Because people have understood that, their health, their diet and health is very well connected, and also other things like exercise. So we've probably never been healthier as a nation and than we are right now, because we're so much more aware. No matter what kind of income level you are, you understand that there's something that's good for you and there's something that's bad for you, and it's highlighted because you don't want to get ill. You don't want to pick up this illness, and if you do, if your diet is pure and it's not good quality, then there will be a bigger impact on maybe you, and maybe you actually would have bigger consequences out of becoming ill with COVID.
Yeah, and I mean, do you know what? I think even with like, even with the fact of a lot of businesses now being people wanting to know exactly who's behind it and what is going on and what you guys are doing, and social media plays a massive part in that, and having people want to, maybe send a message or a direct message to say on Instagram or Facebook and say, what do you what can we do to make things better, and what are you putting in the food, or I spotted this and I think you guys could do this. And I think that direct conversation, that feedback that you get from a consumer, not it going through, we still have a customer service system in place, but having that direct access also gives people confidence, and confidence and trust in business is something that gives you sustainability over a duration of time, and for the foreseeable future as well. So making sure that you're accessible, and making sure that your social media side is on point within business, and you are able to directly talk to consumers and showcase what you do, show them what it's like even behind the scenes of what you do, just gives them that understanding of we feel like we are part of this company, this journey. And for us as well, it's people feel like they're part of the family and part of what we do as a business, and that kind of extended family ethos that we have within the company is something that transcends across different generations. And there are many people now that are that were born in like the early 2000s or in the 90s, where their parents used to come and buy our products, and they've grown up knowing our products. They are now teenagers, they are now young adults, and they always remember that nostalgia of why their parents bought this product and how much they love it, and they are now seeing and supporting what we are doing and moving forward. So for us as well, making sure that we are capturing that audience and connecting with that customer base is really important, especially in this time as well, because see people want to see more. They don't just want to hear things, they want to see more.
Yeah, and I guess they want to see the evidence on that. That's what the story you're telling is actually adding up, and you're actually acting and doing on the beliefs and behaviors and values you say you are as a business owner.
Yeah.
How do you think it looks in the high street looks in 12 to 18 months? Because you're on the high street yourself, but how do you think it would look in 12 to 18 months? There's a lot of, you know, prognosis on that it's going to look half empty even. 50 to 60% of retailers, hospitality and restaurants are gone by then, because they can't sustain business through the next 6 months because of the new situation. There is that it doesn't look to there's going to be a very bright future for the next 6 months, and it's going to be very difficult for them to either pay landlords or anything.
There's so many different levels of sustainability that needs to happen in order for us to keep our high streets going. um there is going to be a lot of businesses that are not going to be able to sustain that. There are maybe some businesses that are going to be able to sustain that. But I think what it's going to look like in the next 12 to 18 months is a bit kind of hard to tell. Um, it, I think it got to a point people did start getting a bit more confident with coming out a bit more, and being in stores and coming out to try things. I think that's just part of the culture of what we're in, especially in the UK. People love to be out. People want to go to try things, but at the same time, I just feel like with now the added extra measures of lockdown that are in place, it's brought people to another standpoint where they feel a bit more reluctant to go out. So maybe I think this point is going to kind of hit harder more than ever, especially within hospitality, because of, you know, bars, pubs, restaurants that have to close at 10 o'clock. They're going to be hit in such a major way, because we know from like Thursday to a Saturday night, that's when people are out. That's when people are out with their spouses, friends, family, and not being able to be out and being capped at a certain time is going to hit business a lot. So it's kind of, I think it's really kind of hard. But I think just as an industry on a whole, it's about kind of sharing as many ideas as possible, and also trying to come together, because I think industries also need to work real closely with each other in order to survive, in order to understand, in order to create partnerships that can try and sustain moving forward. So these are the kind of conversations and things that need to be in place in order to make things hopefully okay, for tomorrow. But I think a lot of the time it's a bit clouded, because I think everyone is just focusing just on today, and you know, even today is a bit uncertain in certain ways. So it's a difficult time. It's a difficult time to really kind of really understand exactly what's going to happen.
And I think is again, you mentioned a couple of times, and I think it sums up to this again. I think we talked about before we went live as well, is that, you know, radical acceptance of the situation, but keep moving your feet and have faith in a better future, even though how dark it looks, as your mom says. Again, it's such a beautiful quote. Life will get better. What kind of advice? Because in the end of the podcast, we always ask the guest to give, you know, their top 3 advice to other leaders out there, people out there. What would your advice be as we stand in this moment of time? Your advice, of course, can change in a moment of time because something happens. But from what you know right now, what would your top 3 advice be to other independent business owners and business owners in general out there?
I would definitely say at this present moment in time, advice wise, I always kind of say stay true to yourself, stay true to your beliefs, and stay true to your purpose, especially in this kind of time, because that is what's going to kind of help carry you through. Um, Stay resilient, stay as proactive as possible. Um, and also, I would say keep things simple but innovate. We're in a time where there is a lot of shift, there is a lot of change, and I think within that shift and within that change comes a lot of opportunities. And we've seen it happen throughout history. We've seen it in a financial crash that happened, and there are opportunities that can be you know, taken into consideration. But it's just a matter of, you know, trying to sustain your mind as possible, because this is not just a financial thing that is going on at the moment. It's a mental thing that is going on. It's physical thing that is going on. So it takes a toll on people to a whole another level. And I think especially with business owners and independent, you know, business owners and food manufacturers and people that are within the industry, it's very important to try and have that resilience, and, you know, just be courteous of people that you're around, and you know, just be just a good human being in this time, because we don't know what tomorrow is really going to bring. um but I always have this kind of saying, is that it's all well and good to you know, to think of later, but you have to you know, live in the moment, prepare now. When tomorrow comes, then that preparation will meet the opportunity. And, you know, staying resilient and keeping hope is what's gonna, you know, keep you through. I think I've probably even said more than 3, but
Yeah, I think, but some of them could be. If I put them together in a way, what you're saying is that, you know, stay resilient and take care of yourself and make sure that your mind and body is on top of top game it can be. And then you said be proactive still. You know, keep moving the feet, as I call it as well. even though how hard it is to show up and try to do your best every day. And then there was the whole thing about caring and understanding and empathy, which I think it's very important. We touched on it a couple of times as well. So I think it's great advice, and I think it can't be said too many times. I think I would finish this conversation. I'll try to say your mom's quote in the right way. Then you can correct me if I don't get it right. Because I
Yeah,
think
go for it.
I know I've been around this quote a couple of times, but since I saw it on the website, I've just been in love with it. Obeyeyie.
So it's Obeyeyie. So
Obeyeyie. Obeyeyie.
Yeah.
Life will get better.
Yes.
So let's leave the listeners with that. And if they want to get in touch with you, Sam, in any way, how do they do that?
So first and foremost, you can go onto our website, which is theunclejohnsbakery.com. You can find us on Instagram, which is Uncle John's Bakery. You can find us on Facebook, Uncle John's Bakery. On Twitter, Uncle John Bakery. And also on my Instagram also is SMX UK. And yeah, I'm always, open to having discussions and just kind of just trying to meet like-minded people and better things for now and for the future.
Yeah, and the last note I'll put in, because I think Sam was a bit humble. He also has a podcast that's called The End Goal, where he talks about his business journey with other business owners. So if you are a early stage entrepreneur in this situation, I'm sure there's a lot of great insights to pick up on that podcast as well.
No, thank you. Yeah, I didn't want to do too much of a shameless plug, so
I knew. Let's leave the listeners that life will get better, Sam, and hopefully when we connect in some time, we will tell about a new and better future within food and communities and our planet. Thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
No, thank you, Michael, for bringing me on. I appreciate the chat and the opportunity, and it was a great conversation.
Sam, thank you so much. Fascinating journey, and thanks for your great advice and, more important, hope. So everybody remember out there, Obeyeyie, life will get better. If you would like to get inspired by a similar story of a family business, you should tune in to episode 56, Heartfelt Hospitality with Nina Jeffross-Stevenson, Chief Culture Officer at Point A Hotels. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please give us a like, share, rate, or subscribe to one of our channels. Tune in next time for another interview, and in the meantime, find out more about us and subscribe to the community and download free leadership tools at hospitalitymavericks.com, or just use the link in the show notes. Thanks for listening, and be Maverick.